Hello everyone, and welcome to game number 1 in our best of 3 semifinal between PBhead and Gameslayer. So this is going to be our second semifinal. Winner of this will go on to face Qubit32 in the final round of our third Offworld tournament. And this time, Soren, having been knocked out of the tournament, has decided to join me and talk about this one with me.
Well, I think we might see another early found here. I see a great Scavenger location. And maybe workable Robotic up north, I guess.
Scavenger.
Yep.
Well, there you go. That's another 60,000 debt Scavenger found, and PBhead is going to throw down Robot right afterward, grabbing up, it looks like, just plenty of iron and aluminum immediately. Definitely going to be able to get away with that, I think, against a Scavenger player, and then just quickly rotate on into his steel on HQ level 2. Doesn't have to do anything too crazy or fancy just yet.
Wow, interesting that he didn't take the high carbon. Potentially, PB could steal that from him.
That would be interesting. I imagine he's still going to get it because PBhead, I mean, he's going to have to commit at least 3 claims to steal, right? Which I just want to point out, he has like the best setup in terms of adjacency for his steel mills. This is the ideal in some ways robotic iron steel combination when you've got those 2 tiles separated by exactly 1 hexagon that are opposite each other. On that hexagon, you can just get such fantastic steel adjacency. It's not as big a deal as it was when that adjacency first came into the game, but it is really, really good. This is exactly, in a lot of ways, how you're going to want your steel set up most of the time as a robotic player. In any case, Gameslayer did manage to secure his high carbon, so he's going to have a lot of carbon coming in very, very early, but I think a big difference between, say, Gameslayer and Qubit, who had a very, very similar opener just last game that we saw. There are 2 huge things going on right now. First of all, Gameslayer is down 2 claims compared to Qubit. Qubit got 1 in an auction. Speaking of, have we just not seen an auction?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it doesn't happen.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't have it. That always confuses me because I'll think I've missed an auction. I just don't think I've ever seen it so that day 1 didn't have one.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. Regardless, Qubit was up 2 claims to Gameslayer, and on top of that, he had a high silicon tile instead of a low silicon. So Gameslayer is basically just missing 2 glass furnaces that Qubit had in a very, very similar situation. So it might be harder for him to abuse the fact that he is flooding these upgrade resources, as he only has a flood of 2 of them, and he is going to need to sell them down in order to pick up that 3rd one.
Yeah, I mean, this is a situation where he's got the carbon, but the carbon's basically worthless beyond just, you know, he needs carbon, you know?
That market is online.
Yeah, and there's also no nukes.
Yep, no nukes this time.
So the medium aluminum is safe for PBhead.
Yes, it is, and that's very, very nice. Nukes can just be a very frustrating tool to have used against you sometimes. It looks like PBhead has kind of detoured, and he's picked himself up 2 goon squads instead of just rushing through upgrades, whereas Gameslayer, he seems to have no interest in the black market whatsoever. He's going to have seen that goon squad price move up twice.
Yep.
He knows he's not going to have very effective attacks here. He'll have to take risks in order to do that, and so he instead has just headed on through upgrades himself. And now we can see he's securing enough resources that he will be able to use some glass furnaces.
I don't know if he really needed that 2nd aluminum mine. Especially knowing it's the only... Well, no, there wasn't a... It's interesting. PB passed up a high aluminum. Interesting.
Maybe valuing just the fact that the aluminum was close rather than taking on too much of it. And this game, you can tell that it's going to pan out, really. I mean, he gets the aluminum quickly for that first upgrade, right? Doesn't have to send the mine out as far. It doesn't have as far to travel on back. And for the rest of this game, I mean, Gameslayer's in a position where he's brought that price down to $7.
Yeah.
And so PBhead doesn't really have to care if he's down half an aluminum a second.
Yeah, and he could swap that aluminum to something else if he wants to.
Yeah.
Because it's so close.
And there was a great power surge from PBhead. This is exactly the kind of thing I expect to see. Gameslayer not bothering ever to secure a goon squad for himself, so PBhead punishes with a power surge on Gameslayer's only source of money, and suddenly Gameslayer is still stuck in the position where he's only got 3 resources coming in. The most valuable one is silicon at $23. That's not a great spot to be. to be in when your most valuable tile is like $34 a second tile.
Yep. I mean, it's the only real clump of the silicon on the map he's got, but when your opponent is robotic, it's not necessarily that important.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's just not going to be consuming that glass in the same way. He's not going to be driving that price up at all, although he may be trying to put down solar panels, and it can be useful to have silicon at that point, for sure. We'll just have to see what PB Head decides on for his power at HQ level 4, I think.
Yep. PB Head's got $100,000 of debt to work through, however. I mean, GameSlayer does, so...
Well, PB Head and GameSlayer both do, so... Both of them have racked up a nice large amount of debt already this game, mostly I imagine off of power, and GameSlayer did make the wise decision of moving into solar panels himself, at least. So I mean, he's not pulling in more aluminum, he's got 640, maybe PB Head will get punished for having a very, very light amount of aluminum, but I kind of doubt it. Robotic players generally aren't.
PB Head's mills have dipped into the negative, so I'd like to see GameSlayer throw down the network virus right now.
Yeah, he could attempt it. Of course, those are protected very, very heavily by goon squads, but they could still get a little work done and make things awkward for PB Head, regardless of that. Because he is only running on, I believe, what is it, like 3 iron a second right now? No, he's got 4.5 iron per second. Oh, he has a third metal mine now. That makes sense. It is interesting having to have 3 metal mines to kind of get this adjacency bonus set up for his steel mills, but it seems to be working out for him as he is HQ level 4 already with food and power production.
Think about it, they both have a ton of tiles that are basically making almost no revenue for them.
It's true, because all they want to do is push through upgrades still, it seems. And they haven't really found a whole lot of room beyond that to actually make money, although PB Head does have his farms down, and I think that might make the difference.
Yeah, those are very good tiles.
Finally, we get an auction. Was that... Did we get an auction before this? Is that our first auction this game?
Yeah.
On day 3?
Yeah,
that's unlikely, but interesting to see.
Considering it's day 3, I'd expect to see a pretty high bid here.
Yeah. GameSlayer may be a little bit nervous about it with the fact that his power is frozen, nighttime is on the way as one of them unfreezes.
I mean, PB has a huge advantage here as Robotic in that his debt is going to be more easier to control.
Yes. Although he is already at that classic $148,000 of debt and C rating that we expect to see. Whoa, GameSlayer has managed to push on through to HQ level 5 already. That's interesting. That was...
Well, that's what you get for only building aluminum, carbon, and glass.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, they're not making money, but that's fine because all the resources they need, or all the resources they even want, yeah, they don't cost anything, but that's okay. That's exactly what they want to be in. That's the position they like. So they can keep spamming out those upgrades. Both of them have hit HQ level 5 by now. And what are we going to see out of that? We've got farms out of GameSlayer, reactors out of PB Head along to go with his farms. I'm a little worried. How much water do these guys have secured already this game?
Well, GameSlayer has 2 tiles, a high and a medium next to it, so he's got a good... No, wait, that's PB Head, excuse me.
Yeah, PB Head does have that high and a medium, and then GameSlayer, he's got a triangle, but it's medium, low, low. That's...
He's going to be short on claims, that's going to be his issue.
Yeah, GameSlayer having committed 3 claims to water, that is a lot, especially with ice on the map. It's paying off now. You can see, I mean, $44 water, 5 water a second. That's not a bad place to be, really, but I'm worried about him long-term this game, because both players do seem to be kind of neck and neck, and we could end up with a very long one this time.
Yeah, this one's going to be real close, I think.
Well, regardless, it'll be interesting to see who manages to push to that Offworld first. GameSlayer, I think, might end up having an easier time of it, being Scavenger, with that $9 carbon price, still managing to pull in about 5 carbon a second consistently. PB Head, more expensive steel, not getting as much per second, but he only needs 2/3 of the steel that GameSlayer needs out of carbon. So I don't know who's going to win that race.
Considering how close they are, and, well, you may disagree, I'd be curious to hear. Considering how close they are right now, and the fact that PB Head has kind of extra claims to work with, I'd love to see him throw down Engineering Lab. Just with the sense that this game's going to go long. But I don't know.
It could work. The thing I don't like about Engineering Lab in 1v1 is you can see that the highest price even on the market at all right now is Electronics at 174. I would much rather generally have down a hacker array and be able to affect the demand side of things rather than the supply side of things. Another claim auction coming out. I think GameSlayer is going to need to put a lot of value on this. Personally, he could definitely use this to get maybe an extra triangle of production up instead of some carbon, but I'm worried about the fact that he's actually transitioned out of some of his carbon. And he is going to use that new claim and go right into reactors, trying to make that money to push to an off-world rather than just pull in carbon to make that happen.
Yep. That makes sense.
Yeah. And it could work.
Yeah. I mean, electronics is worth a lot, but the net revenue is only $20 from an electronics factory.
Yeah, exactly. Making electronics, very, very difficult to do, especially with silicon at the very high price that it is. It should be noted that GameSlayer is putting in a lot of silicon. Getting a lot of silicon coming in, it is worth a lot of money, and that's great for him.
Glass is a pretty bad investment, though, at this point.
Yeah, I feel like he's mostly just stuck in it because he was already in it, and both players almost simultaneously.
Time, yeah.
Yeah. GameSlayer like 1 second ahead there.
Yeah.
But I do think that gives GameSlayer the advantage in some ways. His debt's not in a good spot, but once again, he is Scavenger. Now that he's managed to push to this point where he can make quite a bit of money, he's going to have EMPs available, he's going to have power surges available. The network virus is there to punish PB if he makes just even a small misstep. And mutinies are also available to fight back against the off-worlds. So...
Yep. Yeah, in a close game like this, I agree. The Scavenger black market advantage is crucial. It's the defining thing at this point.
Yeah, on top of that, GameSlayer is actually already trying to purchase up the oxygen that he is going to need to make that launch to guarantee it gets started the moment that the off-world is online. PB has made no such move, so he's going to get a worse price on that. And his launch might be a little bit slower to get started. It should be noted that GameSlayer might actually be sending the wrong resource, as oxygen is up at 667, but food is at 594. Those two are very, very close together, and both of them, with their current price spread, might be a reasonable things to send.
Yeah.
Alright, and we can see that the launch did start for GameSlayer almost instantly, whereas PB had his was a little bit later. So GameSlayer is going to get that first launch off. He's going to get that first giant bundle of cash. But I'm wondering if he should defend himself with it.
His issue right now, he just got at a level of D. He must have just paid off some debt, because that would have been in big trouble. I like that he was going into reactors, because if I was PB head right now, I'd be trying to figure out ways to push GameSlayer farther into debt. It seems like that's one way to get an advantage over him. Mm-hmm. Or right now, it could simply be a race to that second off-world. I mean, they have to find some way to differentiate themselves. And the big one right now, there's a $5 difference in stock price, right?
Yeah, PB Head doing much, much better in debt. And PB Head, it looks like, has actually gone into a hacker array. And I do kind of like that move. Mm-hmm. My nervousness for GameSlayer with moving into these reactors does come not with the first off-world, but with the second one. You can see that GameSlayer is going to have a very, very difficult time pushing to a second off-world this game. He's already in electronics factories. He's on half a carbon a second. It's just not going to happen, so he's almost committed completely to this play. And PB Head, as long as he can defend himself, which he's got plenty of money to do so, he just needs to commit it there. And if he can keep pushing this game later and later and later, then I think he's going to end up being okay. If he absolutely has to, he could likely cancel that oxygen shipment just to guarantee I've got all 5 that I need. Oh, GameSlayer, nope, he's just going to back out. So PB Head's just doing just fine, and I'm very concerned about GameSlayer at this point.
Yeah, he's got to get a he's got to figure out a way to use his black market advantage right now. And
what he's trying to do right now, he's trying to use the fact that he forced PB to buy into his own stock to make a little bit of money and make that transition into the second off-world. But you can see Carbon's up at $100 a piece. That off-world cost him $125,000 to put down. And it's just not going to happen anytime soon. And when it does, there, he finally might have pulled it off. There it is, the second off-world coming down, but look at how much money that cost him. Now he can't defend himself. PB Head's got a chemical shortage on the way. He's got off-worlds launching. GameSlayer has a ridiculous amount of debt. He's going to have a lot of trouble defending himself against his off-worlds getting attacked, against PB Head pressing into his stock, and I think PB Head's just going to clean up this game in mere moments.
Yeah, he basically has the money for it. GameSlayer needs to get to 50% somehow.
Absolutely. He's got to get those 2 more stock purchases done. Now, of course, his stock is very cheap, so maybe he can go ahead and pull it off. PB Head's so close. He's actually at the 100. But he's so committed to this shortage, he might not push there in time.
Maybe he doesn't realize.
Yeah, and GameSlayer pulled it off.
You got
PB
it.
had maybe a bit too committed to that chemical short play. Did not notice that he potentially had the victory right there, and that's going to allow Gameslayer an in back into this game. He is still in a lot of trouble, I think, with that D debt, but suddenly he has a chance when the door should have been shut on him.
Well, mutinies are 5,000,
Market is gone
and he's
high.
in D debt. That's
That's the problem. Exactly. Exactly.
All the money.
And on top of that, because he has moved into 2 Offworlds, with Goon Squads already at a $30,000 price, he's made himself very, very vulnerable and very easy to attack.
Yep.
And that's not a position you want to be in. PB Head is already back at that 77% mark. He's pulling in carbon. He's pulling in chemicals, making decent money, and
Hopefully PBhead realizes there's no reason for him to build a second Offworld.
yeah, I don't think he's going to. Although he is securing his own stock, I don't like that play.
Yep.
I want him to just man up and kill Gameslayer at this point.
Yeah,
That's what I
he
want to
should-
see. He sold back out of it. He sold back out of it. So he kind of has identified the situation. He might have intended to actually sell his stock in order to press to that victory.
He's 5,000 away from winning, so the game's over.
Well, 10 seconds till this launch happens, and I think that is going to do it then and there. Although PB Head is... That's bold. PB Head just selling more stock.
Yeah, he just had to.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it.
Oh man, that was a little bit dangerous with the majority buyout situation going on. PB Head really pressing for that victory now, not wanting to play that game out anymore. That was bold.
I think it was debt that got Gameslayer.
Oh
I mean,
yeah, I mean,
That's the advantage that the advantage PB had is he knew he wouldn't have to have the same debt issues that Gameslayer did, and because of the debt issues, Gameslayer had to take his money, put it into his own stock, and then put it into paying off his own debt. Which basically probably created a 100K difference between PB Head and Gameslayer.
yeah, I think debt was a big concern, and I think that we saw with that reactor transition in particular, with not having enough carbon and moving into electronics, that I think was the final nail in Gameslayer's coffin. He was making all these moves, then he goes into electronics, and he basically guarantees a situation where he can't afford to do anything, and we can see Gameslayer spent more on world than he made that game. That is not a situation you want to be in, and the vast majority of it was carbon. I don't think... Yeah, he moved out of carbon and then messed up, is what he says. And I agree. I think that move out of carbon, it was something he could do, but he needed to be very careful in how he approached it and make sure to re-secure the carbon at an appropriate time. And I don't think either of those things happened. And I think that, combined with the debt, is what knocked him out of this game very effectively.
Yeah, don't delete your carbon until you got 2 Offworlds up. I mean, you're gonna need
you
it.
can, but you got to be so careful.
Yeah.
You got to be so careful with it. He did have a little carbon coming in, but it clearly wasn't enough that game. Oh, SMG's back in chat.
Wow.
That's nice to see. I don't know if there's too much more to talk about there. PB Head did use the hacker array for a lot of cash. He did make a lot of money off of that.
How much?
Well, he made a total of about 70,000 on chems.
Right. Was that one?
And that was, I think, one short, and he only had 2 chem labs up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
If I remember correctly. That hacker array, I love the hacker array in these games. It's a fantastic... I'm starting to wonder if it is better in these close situations to move into a hacker array than a second Offworld, rather than rush for the double Offworld.
Yeah, I think I agree, because you're just kind of, there's a lot of tools to knock out the other players Offworld, and the hacker array, it really separates you from the other player. Whereas,
I think there might be situations that support both styles, rather than just an automatic, I want 2 Offworlds immediately.
Yeah. It was an odd game because they were really close when they were building that first Offworld. And it was hard to pick. It was hard to predict what was going to happen, but things changed significantly after that.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree with you that I think the 2 biggest difference between these players, you've got the debt for Gameslayer, got too out of control, and then for PB Head, he made 140,000 on world, whereas Gameslayer lost 40,000. So that's another 180,000 swing right there, and that'll clean up the game on its own pretty effectively most of the time. All right, well, don't want to keep these players waiting too long, so I'll go ahead and get game number 2 hosted.